I about melted. I hate the heat. I'm a snow bum. Give me snow and hot cocoa. Today's not fun. But today, after today, you'll have some really great stuff to eat on a hot day like today. So, this is me. I'm Keegan. I've been in the food business for over 35 years. I can't believe it's been that long because I'm not that old. And I'm really not. I just love food. I love everything about food. My doctor would like me to not like food quite so much, but he'll get over it. We opened the Lakehouse Bakery just over 6 years ago. We're in the middle of the Waterloo State Recreation Area. So we're not downtown Chelsea. So if you're familiar with that area, there's lots of bike trails and camping and all kinds of fun stuff. So come out and see us. Saturdays of the day, cinnamon rolls and sticky buns, and that's all I'm saying. Not anywhere related to salads. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight, high protein salads and how to get them, how to make them, what they are, how to get some more protein, the best types of protein to use for these salads, and then some ideas on some salads and of course some books you can check out here at the library. As we're going, please stop and ask questions. I want you to be, more knowledgeable when you leave here and have a level of confidence in this. So that you can make some really great salads when it's 9,000 degrees outside. All right, so salads can be broken down into three basic types: appetizers, sides, and an entree. An appetizer salad is just what it sounds like. It's a very small salad. It's designed to get your palate awoke, ready to enjoy the rest of the meal. And it typically is something that's going to flow into the next sections of the meal. So I've got a caprese salad up there. The protein in that, of course, is the fresh mozzarella. The tomatoes, while not much protein, it is a great vegetable. Scratch that, it's a fruit. Yeah, botanically, it's a fruit. The Supreme Court said it's a vegetable, but it's not. But again, it's nice and light. And it's not going to be too filling, and it gets you ready so that when you're finished with it and having a great conversation with your friends, or your cat, like my cat, then you can move on to the accompanying salad. Now, what do I mean by an accompanying salad? So let's say you're not having an entree salad, but you're having, let's say, some steak. An accompanying salad would be coleslaw. Something along those lines, something that's a little bit more than an appetizer. It could be a larger portion, it could be the same size portion, but there's generally a bit more to it than just an appetizer. And it goes along with it. So the picture I have up there is tabbouleh. I love tabbouleh. It's a nightmare to make. Just go to Stars and get some. They have really good tabbouleh. But it's packed with all kinds of great stuff for you. So, and that's in an accompanying salad. So it goes with the entree on the plate, and it continues the progression of flavors through your meal. And then we have an entree salad. This is going to be the big mamma jamma. This is going to be the bulk of your meal. It's going to be either mostly lettuce with some protein added onto it. It could be chicken salad. That's an entree salad. Put some greens underneath it, but that's what I mean by an entree. So it takes up the bulk of the meal, it has the bulk of the protein, and it's really much more filling. It's typically a larger portion, and I don't mean like a larger portion, I mean just, a little bit more than the accompanying, and it's definitely more than the appetizer. So that's salads broken down into the three main types of salad. Any questions so far? Yeah. Stars is just down the strip mall. Yep, right in this mall. It's like 6 shops down, maybe. It's really good food. And they didn't pay me or anything. All right, so salad components. So what goes in a salad? Well, you've got the foundation. And we are very fortunate to be in Michigan. I love Michigan. I love everything about Michigan. We have some of the best farms in the world, as far as I'm concerned. There's a farm right near me, Jacob's Fresh Farm, and he grows all kind of microgreens, salad greens, lettuce, bib lettuce, like anything you can think of, he grows it there. And we're also fortunate that a lot of our grocery stores, whether it's the food co-op in Carytown or it's Bush's or whatever grocery store you have, has really great produce because we're in Michigan. That's going to be the foundation of your salad. Again, whether it's an entree accompanying or an appetizer salad, that's the foundation. And mix it up some. I remember when I was a kid, my grand loved iceberg lettuce. That was her favorite. Not much flavor in iceberg lettuce, but it's lettuce. But throw in maybe some mustard greens, throw in some dandelion greens, throw in some, I'm not a big kale guy, I'll own it right now, I just can't do it, it's too bitter. My girlfriend has tried many, many, many times to get me to eat kale, can't do it. But feel free, it's really good for you. And it gives, so the foundation isn't just what you put stuff on, it also goes with the other ingredients. And one of the books I'm going to tell you about in a little bit is the one that you really need to check out. Then we've got the body of the salad, the main ingredient. Chicken, salmon, tuna, steak. Why not? Because a steak salad, oh, so good. Some thinly cut steak that's been grilled, nice medium rare, medium, some garlic, some pepper, salt, just really simple ingredients. Have that as your main body on the salad. It's quite tasty. But it doesn't, that's where your protein is going to come in. And we're going to talk about the types of protein in a second. Then your garnish. Who knew a salad had garnish, right? And that's everything else. That's the carrots, the celery, the beets, the corn, the peas, the croutons, the sunflower seeds, the sesame seeds, the peanuts, if you're not allergic. It's the other things that go on the salad. And that's pretty much whatever you want. One of my favorite salads is the Cobb, and I'll talk about that in a second. And you eat the rainbow. You put as much on it as you want, and you just have all those flavors melding together. It's great. But those are the garnishings. And then last we have the dressing. There's a separate class that we've done on the well-dressed salad. We'll have to bring that one back, Erin, now that I think about it.
That's right.
And it talks about dressings. Now, dressings are an entity kind of all on their own, which is why it has a separate class all by itself. And this is different because this is focusing on the proteins in the salad. But with the dressings, it's not as difficult as you think it is to make your own. It really, really isn't. Something as simple as honey, balsamic vinegar, and some olive oil. Some salt, some garlic. That's it. Mix it together and just gently toss over your salad. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But stay away from the cream salads, dressings. Like if you're going for a higher protein salad, you're completely negating all the protein by having a fat-laced blue cheese dressing. Now, don't get me wrong. I could eat my weight in blue cheese dressing. I love that stuff. And there's a little bit of protein in the cheese, but the cream is offset all that protein. So stick to the lighter fares. Now, I'm not saying the ones that actually say light. I mean the ones that are olive oil or oil and vinegar based. Those are going to be better for you. The other thing is, and I'll just kind of hint at the well-dressed salad class, you don't need a whole lot of it. Your salad should not be drowning in dressing. You just want a little bit on your main body and components so that you're heightening the flavor of the salad and not completely covering it with ranch. Don't get me wrong, I like to dip fries in ranch too, but that's another subject. So, what are we going to put on our salad? Here's a variety of high-protein foods. Eggs. The incredible edible egg. They weren't kidding when they came up with that one. Eggs are absolutely the single greatest food ever on the planet, in my opinion. Even more so than chocolate, because I can still mix chocolate with eggs. But eggs have and I'll talk about this a little bit more, but eggs are a great source of protein. They also have some fat, but it's a good fat. It's not a bad fat. Almonds, slivered almonds, Almond slices, whole almonds, as long as you're not allergic, of course. Chicken, oats. How are you going to get oats in a salad? That's where your accompaniments come in. So imagine an oat-based crumble, or like not quite a granola because that's a little sweet, but like a savory version of a granola that you would sprinkle on as a crouton for your salad. And the oats are going to get you the fiber as well as the protein. Then we've got cottage cheese. I love cottage cheese. Gran always had it with like peaches or with fruit. I can't do my cottage cheese with fruit. I just have a bowl of cottage cheese, thank you. But lots of protein there. Then we've got yogurt. I don't need to say anything else because yogurt's amazing stuff. Milk, broccoli. I do like broccoli. The whole thing. Actually, my favorite part of the broccoli is the stem. Has anybody ever just sliced the stem thinly and eaten the stem? It's so good. They're a bit sweeter, and that's why you slice it fairly thin so you get the fiber from it as well. But the broccoli stem is really, really quite tasty. Just raw, eat it. Don't even dip it in anything, just eat it. It's awesome. Then we've got steak, of course, and then tuna. And we've got quinoa. Quinoa can be made in a variety of ways. It can be part of an accompanying salad. Imagine a quinoa, tomato, cucumber, kind of an accompanying salad with a balsamic vinaigrette drizzle. That tastes really good. What is that powder next to it? That's whey powder. That would be something that you could add to your dressing, as long as it's like a balsamic or some kind of a vinaigrette of some sort. Add the whey protein and mix it really well. That will give it the feel of a creamy salad dressing without actually adding the fat of a creamy salad dressing. You might need to use something fairly robust to mix that with, like a hand blender or immersion blender, food processor, to get it fully emulsified. And that way it doesn't get grainy or stay kind of separated. But it's totally doable. And then once you've got it, you make up what you need for that day, and then you've got, or a little bit more, you've got it for tomorrow's lunch. Legumes. All kinds of legumes. There's a reason there's a 7-bean salad. That's another really popular accompanying salad. The bread, I couldn't find a really good picture, but Ezekiel bread has a really high protein content. Most bakeries, including mine, don't make it because it's fairly complicated to do. You can find it in most grocery stores in the frozen food section. And it comes as a loaf, frozen, pre-sliced, ready to go. And it does have a really high protein content. And that you would just have some butter, real butter, not a lot, just a little bit of butter on the bread and then eat it with your salad, but very high protein. Pumpkin seeds, pepitas. So good. And I'm not talking about, remember, I don't know if you remember the pack that comes with the salt encrusted pumpkin, not those. Too much salt. But actual just raw pumpkin seeds. So yummy. They're so good. And just sprinkle them on your salad. Then we've got turkey, of course, really high in protein. Salmon, seafood, shellfish, again, as long as you're not allergic. Lots of protein. Brussels sprouts. It took me a long time as a kid to remember that it's Brussels sprout, not Brussels sprouts. But there's an S on the end of the Brussels. And again, I can't do them. My girlfriend has tried with bacon, with maple syrup. She's tried everything she can think of to get me to like Brussels sprouts, and I just can't do it. Something about that and kale, I just can't do it. And peanuts. Again, as long as you're not allergic, peanuts have a really high protein content. And again, sprinkle them in your salad. You grind them up and use that for part of your dressing. We make a West African peanut soup in the wintertime. Peanuts are amazing. Peanuts are absolutely amazing. Any questions on some of the proteins that you can add to your salads to get more protein out of them? All right. So, not all proteins are the same. Now we went through a fairly long list of proteins. The biggest difference in proteins is going to be the source of the protein itself. So the fat content is really going to be a big factor. So imagine, all right, let's take pork for example. Pork it's meat, it's a protein, but certain sections of the pork are going to have a much higher fat content than other sections. Even chicken, think the dark meat on a chicken versus the breast, which is why most people go for the breast without the skin, just because again, that's all fat right there. So pay attention to where you're getting your protein. And if it's an animal protein, check the fat content, because that will have an impact on, is it, and that's what I mean by serving size protein gain on that, is if you've got a 4-ounce chicken breast that has very little fat in it versus a 4-ounce piece of bacon, that's a really big difference in fat for not as much protein gain for the same serving size. That's what I mean by that one. So for some shellfish, some fish, shrimp, you might also need to take into account other micronutrients or elements that would be present in the food. Depending on how it's sourced, the fish could not be good. And I don't mean just because it's gone bad, but there could be, like for a while when I was a kid, we didn't fish from the Detroit River. We can now because it's cleaned up. So just go to a fishmonger, a reputable fishmonger, and ask these questions, because they'll have the answers for you and they'll know if there's anything present in the shellfish or fish. And that's the one to really pay attention to. Some of the other micronutrients and elements won't be as big an impact, but the fish is where you'll have the bigger issues with. Calorie difference, I kind of mentioned that. So again, the calorie difference in, say, peanuts versus Brussels sprouts. Peanuts are going to have a higher calorie content because of the fat inherent in the peanut. It's not that peanuts are bad for you or they're super, super high in fat. They're just more fat than Brussels sprouts. That's probably why I don't like Brussels sprouts. It's not as much fat. Anyway. Most seafoods do have a higher protein content with a lower fat content. So again, there's so many options out there. The thing to really watch for if you're going to the general market is making sure that it is the fish that they say it is. Especially in the frozen food section. They should be labeling it appropriately, but not always. So, and sometimes fish changes names. So for a while it was orange roughy, and it's changed names to something else that I don't remember right now. Still the same fish. I think monkfish. Yeah, I think that's right. So just pay attention to that so that you're getting what you want and the flavor profiles that you want. Any questions on this one? All right, dairy. So the dairy category is like this. There's a lot that falls in dairy. So let's just take milk, for example. There's a really big difference between whole milk, 2% skim milk, half and half, heavy cream. And depending on where you're getting your dairy from also matters. If you're getting it from a local farm, say Calder, which is a great local farm, or out of the aseptic cans, which is still perfectly safe, there's going to be a flavor difference, there's going to be a fat content difference, especially in butter. There's nothing wrong with butter. Butter is your friend. Just don't eat a whole stick at once. Don't do it. But just pay attention to the dairy that you're getting. I always recommend as local as possible. Washtenaw Dairy, Calder Dairy. There's several other dairies in the area. Even at the grocery store that are either local that you can get really good dairy from. But yogurt, for example. Dannon yogurt is a perfectly acceptable yogurt, but it's going to have a different fat content and calorie content than a Greek yogurt. So just pay attention to that. Pork. I kind of touched on this a second ago. The tenderloin is the least fatty part of the pork. Still really, really tasty. Grill it up, slice it, put that on top of your salad. Or grill it, or smoke it, shred it, and then add, I don't want to say a barbecue sauce because that's going to add a lot of fat and sugar and stuff that you don't want on it. But Carolina barbecue sauce is a vinegar-based barbecue sauce. So if you add a vinaigrette to your salad, you'll get the same basic flavors without all the sugar and fat. Because you can sprinkle barbecue spices on, and they're just spices. There's no calorie intake on spices. So if you're using like a shredded pork that doesn't have any added things to it, that's perfectly acceptable. That'll taste really good, actually. Eggs, it's a pretty cheap way to get some protein. And I say that knowing that a dozen eggs is running around about $4 a dozen now. I go through 75 dozen a week, so it's hard for me to gauge. I mean, I haven't looked at the store lately for a dozen eggs. Does anybody know offhand how much a dozen? I think it's running like $5. Yeah. So for 12, I mean, that's not bad. A little higher than I would hope, but it's still hard-boiled eggs. That's a lot of really good protein that you don't have to do much to or have a lot of skills to do.
What about all the different types of eggs that show you now? Like, farm raised or organic farm raised versus the white?
Right. A lot of that, honestly, is greenwashing. Greenwashing, it's ad speak for this is how we've raised and treated the chickens that we get the eggs from. The biggest factor in egg protein content is the feed that the chickens have as they're laying. How old they are, how long the flock has been laying. Who knows the difference between brown eggs and white eggs?
No difference.
The breed of chicken. That's it. A brown egg is just as nutritionally dense as a white egg and vice versa. There's no flavor difference, there's nothing else. Yeah?
So I'm wondering if other people have noticed this, but I seem to have noticed like a weird smell on eggs sometimes. And I'm wondering if it's the cleanliness of the farm coming through.
Probably not the cleanliness of the farm, and I only say that because eggs have to go through industrial processing to get to the shelf. If you're picking up roadside stand eggs, that's going to be completely different, and those are not regulated. But if you're getting eggs from the supermarket, they go through a wash cycle so it's an industrial cleanser, essentially, that cleans the outside of the egg to make it nice and fresh and white. But it also washes off a natural enzyme. The U.S. is the only country in the world that refrigerates eggs, and we have to because of this industrial process. So I'm not sure it's the egg itself. It might be the carton that it's in, and it might be the cleanliness of the refrigerated unit that you're getting it from. I would check that first.
Has anyone else noticed this? That like sometimes if you're in a cafe and get eggs, there's like a weird aftertaste.
So are you talking fresh, raw eggs, or are you talking cooked?
So, cooked.
My guess is that's the fat they're using to cook it in. It could, I mean, are you noticing it in several places, or?
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. Let's chat after for a bit and see if we can't hunt this down. I'm intrigued now. We'll chat. White meat poultry. Again, I touched on this a second ago. The breast of the chicken is going to be less fatty and have a higher protein content than the thigh or the legs or the wings. And honestly, I've never liked chicken wings. There's not enough meat on it for me. Give me a breast or a thigh every time. In the breast, again, grill it, slice it up, throw it on top of your salad, bake it, cube it up, and make a chicken salad out of it. Good stuff. Yes, ma'am.
So going back to eggs, I've heard, true or not, if it's a harder shell, it's a better egg, and if the yolk is darker, that's a better egg.
No, the shell is only, so the question is about if the shell is thicker, is it better, or if the yolk is yellower, is it better? The yolk is only colored based on the food the chickens are given. That's the only thing that influences the color of the yolk. The shell itself is also the food. That's also how old the chicken is, how long they're into their laying cycle, and that's calcium. So if the chickens are given a higher calcium diet, then the eggs will have a little bit thicker shell. But I've seen some that come out looking like a dinosaur egg, and they're just as fine as the ones that don't. So the main factor with eggs is what the chickens are fed as they're laying. And again, if you go to a roadside stand, they don't necessarily have to be refrigerated because they don't go through that industrial washing. If you get them from the grocery store, you must refrigerate them no matter what, because there's a natural coating on the egg that's washed off in that process, because egg shells are porous. Does everybody know how to tell an old egg from a new egg? And we're kind of going off on the incredible edible egg, which is great. So if you have an egg and you're not sure how old it is, get a fairly tall container and fill it mostly with water. Put the egg in and then see what happens. If it drops to the bottom, it's a very fresh egg. If it floats, it's a very old egg. Because what happens is, again, the shell is porous, and air seeps in through the pores on the shell, and the more air, the more buoyant. So if it floats, it's an older egg. If it sinks, fresh. The only other way really is to hard boil it. And if you've ever noticed on a hard-boiled egg, there's one end that's like flat. It's an older egg. And there's no trick, I swear, there's no trick to peeling a hard-boiled egg, if it's an older egg, it will be easier because there's more of a gap around the inside membrane. But like adding salt or something to the water to make it easier to peel is not true. You just either have it or you don't. And I've gotten to where I can peel like in one peel, like, yeah, about once every 6 months. So, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Sometimes when you crack an egg, some eggs are easy to crack, and the shells are so kind of soft. Other is very hard, so which means the hard one is more healthy.
Nope, the harder shell to crack just means that the shell was a little bit thicker and there's a little bit more calcium in it. The nutritional value is the same. Yeah, yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Well, this again is a question about a friend sells chicken eggs, and they told us by his friend that he wants that on eggs. Once they're refrigerated, have to stay refrigerated.
Yes.
As long as they're not refrigerated, covered, it is okay.
That's absolutely true. Yep, so if you go to the roadside stand and they have a little cooler set up and the eggs are in a refrigerator, which is less than 40 degrees, you have to take them from that refrigerator directly to your refrigerator. But if you go to the roadside stand and they're in a basket, and they might have a little straw or something on them, then take them home and put them on your counter. The second you put them in the refrigerator, they have to stay refrigerated. That's absolutely true. Yep.
Another question.
Yes, ma'am.
If
If it's a farm fresh egg, more than likely, just to make sure that any of the dirt or chicken coop is off of it, yes. So because that could get into whatever it is you're making.
I think it's also because of the chemicals.
If it's a farm fresh egg, they're not using the chemicals.
Yes.
Right, so that's the benefit in a farm fresh egg. Yeah. And the taste. There really is a taste difference between a farm fresh egg and an egg you get at the supermarket. Because generally the eggs you get at the supermarket are at least a week old. because they had to travel from somewhere to get to the grocery store. And a farm fresh egg is probably a day or two.
So should you wash eggs from the grocery store too?
It's not required because the wash cycle that they go through in the processing to get them in the carton, the cleansing agent evaporates off. Kind of like, no, bleach doesn't, of course, but like when you decorate a cake, we'll use vodka as a medium to spray decorating, and the vodka just evaporates off. So it's the same, the cleaning agent is the same and does that, so you don't have to wash them from the grocery store, you just have to keep them in the refrigerator. Absolutely. Yeah.
I make my own mayonnaise, my own. And actually, someone said, make sure you don't use those farm eggs. You need to wash them because mayonnaise, I use yolk and white. So that can be also probably some of them.
Yeah.
So, and then of course it's to be refrigerated. Sometimes mayonnaise stable.
Yeah, shelf-stable mayonnaise is shelf-stable because of additives that they've put in it to make it shelf-stable. But if you're making your own mayonnaise, you absolutely have to refrigerate it. Yep. All right. I love that conversation on eggs. I love eggs. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Did you ever use ostrich egg?
I have. I used it for an omelet. I didn't use it for baking. I wanted to. I wanted to make chocolate chip cookies with it, but I'm glad I didn't because it does have a bit of a more robust flavor. It almost has a meaty flavor to it. I love all kinds of eggs. I like baking with duck eggs, chicken eggs. Quail eggs are a pain in the neck to try and bake with because they're so tiny, but they poach beautifully. But ostrich eggs that's a whole nother. Oh. Yeah.
Can you buy them here?
I have not found any source in Michigan for ostrich eggs. I wouldn't even know where to begin.
I had once, but they wrote us on the road. She said, you have to actually grill them.
Yeah. I had to use a hacksaw. Yeah, I mean, the shell is like this thick. I mean, the shell is huge. Yeah, I had to use a hacksaw to saw into the egg so that it would open. Because if you think about an ostrich and how tall it is, when it lays an egg, it drops from that height. So to make sure that the egg stays intact, the shell has to be very thick. Yeah. Love eggs. All right, so some simple ways to add protein to your salads. Cheese. Now, I'm not talking like American cheese. No. I'm talking hard cheddar, Parmesan, the harder cheeses, because those are going to have a lower fat content, a lower moisture content, and they're going to have more protein bang for your buck. So if it's a soft cheese, think brie. Love brie. Not for a salad. Because it's too soft. It's got too much moisture. It's got too much fat. And it won't be good in your salad, and you're losing your protein content. Sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds. Now I will caution you on these two, because again, don't go buy the package that has them encrusted in salt. That defeats the whole point. Just go get some raw pumpkin seeds, some raw sunflower seeds. And again, not in the shell, but actual sunflower kernels, I think is how they would be labeled in the store. Love those things, man. I could eat them by the handful. So good for you. And not a lot of fat in those. Both pumpkin and sunflower seeds. Almonds, again, another really good one. The thing with almonds, of course, is if you're allergic, that would be bad. Don't do that if you're allergic. But slivered, sliced, whole. Whole is a little bit more difficult to try and eat as you're enjoying your salad. So the slivered and the sliced are good. You could take whole almond meal or almond flour and use that as a sprinkle garnish, like toast it and then sprinkle some on. That would be really good. And then chicken or turkey breast, or salmon, or shrimp. See where I'm going? Yeah. Walnuts, that's a great question. What about walnuts? That's too high a fat content. The fat in walnuts is very, very high. The protein is very, very low. Yeah, so in the realm of nuts to use for higher protein, peanuts, almonds, macadamia nuts are on the bottom. There's too much fat. Hazelnuts, it's too much fat. You don't get the protein bang for your buck on those. They taste really good. Pecans are kind of in a midpoint on there. They have a little bit more fat than an almond, but not as much fat as, say, a walnut. Cashews are very fatty. Yeah. Yeah, cashews are very fatty. It's a good fat. I mean, it's not a trans fat, so it's still good for you. But you're losing your protein balance by using them. That's going to depend on you and what kind of protein content you're going for. If it's slivered or sliced almonds, about a half a cup. The other thing is they can be kind of expensive. By the pound, love that place. You can get as many or as little as you need. You don't have to go buy like a big giant container of them because they're kind of expensive in the grocery store. Arbor Farms has a nice bulk section. So does the People's Food Co-op. I don't think the co-op has almonds in their bulk section. But yeah, by the pound, Arbor Farms, absolutely. And again, just get what you need. The other part to nuts is making sure, because they do have a higher fat content, that you get what you'll eat in a fairly short period of time. Nuts do go rancid fairly quickly. And if you take a bite of one and it tastes a little off, throw them away. And you should freezer is better. Yeah, freezer is much better than refrigerator because there's still moisture in the refrigerator, and that could help move along the rancidity. It still takes longer than if they were, on the shelf, but freezer's the way to go. So some proteins to avoid. We really want to avoid commercially roasted, let me qualify that. If you're going to take some pumpkin seeds or some sunflower seeds that you've got, and you're going to take some balsamic vinegar and some spices, and you're going to roast them yourself, go for it, all day long. But if you're buying them commercially pre-roasted, like the Planters dry roasted peanuts, take a look, just check out the sodium content on that package. Check out the sugar content. Again, I love sugar, I love salt, I eat. Those are two of my 4 favorite food groups. The other two being butter and chocolate. But if you're going for a higher protein salad, you absolutely don't want that much sodium. It's really high. So avoid the commercially roasted. Do it at home yourself. Again, run to Arbor Farms, grab a pound of slivered almonds, come up with your own concoction of what you want to do, roast it yourself, put it in a container, and then you can sprinkle that all over your salad. It's awesome, and it's so easy. Fatty dairies. I kind of touched on this a second ago with the cheeses, right? Like brie has a super high fat content. We don't want brie in our salads. We want brie for dessert. Maybe not after a really healthy salad, but right. Salted or cured meats. As much as I love prosciutto, don't add it to your salad. It does have a really high protein content, but again, you're losing the benefit of the protein with all the sodium. It's a lot. And then processed meats. So what's the difference between cured meats and processed meats? Think prosciutto versus bologna. Right? Bologna is a processed meat. A slice of ham, that would be fine. It's a little bit fattier. But bologna has been processed, and again, that processing is going to add fillers. It's going to add things to it that you're not going to get the benefit of the protein that you want because of all the stuff that they've added to it to make bologna. And again, I don't mind bologna. I like bologna. If it's a really good bologna, not that double named one that my lawyer would make me not, right? Like I can't. But you get where I'm going, right? Like if you have a local butcher and they make it there, sure. Because you know it's going to be a better quality product because they care about what they're putting into it and it's not as processed. It doesn't have the additives in it. Any questions on proteins to avoid? Yeah. Oh, thank you. Added sugars. Well, I mentioned the dry roasted peanuts. Seriously, take a look at the sugar content on those things. Or you'll get remember you go to the festivals and they've got those almonds that you can get in a little cone that are covered in sugar. Not on a protein salad. Not good. For a snack when you're at the fair, sure, because it's fair food and all rules are suspended when you're having fair food. Everything on a stick, right? Like, because it's at the fair. But just don't buy some to take home and put on your salad. Because the sugar is, and this is, I don't know what made me think of this, but who's ever had a Wendy's Frosty? You know what the #1 ingredient in that is? Sodium. Sodium. Yeah, you'd think it was sugar, but yeah, it's sodium. It is, isn't it? Yeah. The sodium is a preservative. And sugar and salt go together like peanut butter and jelly. Like bacon and eggs, like Abbott and Costello. Like sugar and salt actually balance each other really, really well and heighten each other in terms of flavor. Yeah, but #1 is sodium. Yeah, I was surprised when I found that out too. So here are some examples of some appetizer salad. A salad niçoise. It took me forever to learn how to pronounce that too, by the way. It's essentially like, I don't have it on there because I couldn't find a really good picture of it. It's a caper salad with grilled tuna. It's so good and very simple. Some fine dining restaurants, that's actually one of their house salads, but a salad niçoise is very good. Tabbouleh, again, I've made it many, many times. I worked at a Mediterranean restaurant when I lived in Memphis, and we'd go through 5 to 10 cases of parsley making that stuff. It's so good. And it's really good for you. Caprese salad, so kind of like the one at the beginning with the tomatoes and the basil and the fresh mozzarella. A caprese salad is really good. And then one of my absolute favorite appetizer salads, carpaccio. Now, some people freak out with carpaccio. So a carpaccio salad is very thinly sliced, top round steak with olive oil, Parmesan, capers. That's it. You can put some salad greens on it, as like you can see there, and those are like microgreens. I can't remember. Nope, that's the carpaccio. And it typically comes in a single plate. And there's 5 or 6 pieces of the thinly shaved beef on it, and it's raw. So the only caveat to that is you got to like steak rare. And I have a minute steak. Like, but it's all the protein, and because it's a higher cut of beef, there's very little fat. So it's not like, ground round. But that's my absolute favorite one, is carpaccio. Yeah.
This is going back a little bit, but I've heard of different kinds of tuna, different from food and others. And then
Yeah. For salad, I would go with a bluefin. The other thing is cost, because really good fresh tuna, there's a market in Japan where it goes for about $1,000 a pound. Yeah, no. Because tuna, and most people don't realize this, tuna are actually really, really big fish. I mean, they're huge. I mean, I'm not talking we're talking about 100 pounds. They're really big. And depending on how they're caught, depends on the breed of tuna, Those all play into their fat content, where the loin is cut, not the loin, but where the steak is cut from. It's the same with beef. It's the same with chicken. It's the same with any animal protein. How they're fed, how they're caught, how they're processed, all of that goes into how much protein versus fat there really is. I'm trying to think of, this is probably a really bad example, but a Guernsey cow versus a Kobe cow, right? So a Kobe beef is really, really super fat marbled because of the type, how it's raised and the food. It's also, I think last time I checked, $500 a pound. But you cut a steak off that thing and it's like it melts in your mouth butter. It's so good. Whereas a standard, like a Holstein, not, right? It's $8 for a pound of ground beef. I think that's about what it's going for now. So the breed has a lot to do with it, so just pay attention to that. Like sockeye salmon versus wild caught versus farmed shrimp versus wild caught shrimp. And Michigan actually has a couple of shrimp farms. I want to say they're more towards Midland, Bay City-ish area, if I'm remembering correctly. And that also changes. If you go, there's a trout fishery, a U-Catch trout place in Dexter. Yeah, it's actually pretty fun. But the protein is going to be different because they're fed the pellets versus a wild-caught trout up in Baldwin. So it all has an impact on what you're eating because of how it was raised, how it was caught, how it was processed. Did that answer your question? I mean, I don't know specifically on tuna which would be the better one. If you're getting it from a fishmonger and it looks really fresh and bright, then it's probably a really good tuna.
I was thinking about going to the grocery store and different cans.
It tells you on there what breed it is. And I'm going to touch on that in a second. I think actually maybe I passed it by. I thought I was going to talk about it. I might still. But when you're going to the grocery store, sardines are great. Lots of protein in sardines. But if it's in a can of oil versus a can of water, right? So tuna in oil versus tuna in water. Yeah.
It's correlated actually with which the trauma salad because tuna salad mixed with sardines.
Oh.
And it never did anything more satisfying in my life.
That sounds really good. Tuna with sardines.
Combining those two fish, and I'm not sure if this was in olive oil or not, but I know it was a little bit with pickles and nuts.
Yeah, it sounds really good.
And this was the best thing I've ever had.
Sounds. And you didn't bring us any? I'm hungry now. Right? All right, so some accompaniment salads. A lentil salad. I mentioned the 7-bean salad or the 12-bean salad. We've got quinoa salad, an Asian slaw, not like a southern slaw that you get with Kentucky Fried Chicken. Because again, that's got a creamy base to it. An Asian slaw has a rice wine vinegar, a sesame oil, something along those lines. So it's a lighter dressing that goes in the slaw. You can also add some other protein things into that to make it, other than the cabbage or whatever else is in the slaw itself. Throw some tuna in that. Why not?
Well, since you're talking about eating salad, there's a Thai dish that's called lard, and it's made from very finely chopping whatever your protein is. It can be pork, it can be beef, chicken, and then it has a very light Asian dressing and lime juice in it instead. Well, it still has some seasoned rice vinegar in it, but really lime juice. And you can put in some hot peppers, you can put in a lot of.
Sounds lovely.
And so because I don't wanna drive all the way over to Dixon to get some, I tried making it in my kitchen, and I was so happy. So I'm just telling you,
Yeah.
it's something you can try. If
It's-
you don't use ground
No.
meat, you have to chop it up yourself.
Yeah, yep. And the other, I'll go back a second, the other appetizer salad I forgot is ceviche. Who's ever had ceviche? Oh my gosh, it's so good. And talk about protein packed. Completely, like almost all protein. Ceviche? Ceviche is it's typically Mexican or Central American dish that's seafood, typically shrimp. I've seen it, other scallops. I've seen squid, smaller pieces, and they're brined in a lemon juice or a high acid dressing, and the high acid actually cooks the fish because it's such a high acid content in it. So you don't, I have seen it tuna, which is a little bit different because the tuna is it's a little bit different for this. But the shrimp ceviche with some cilantro, some red peppers, some corn even I've seen. Some mahi would do it. Oh. Calamari would do it. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not a fish person, but I want to say if you try ceviche, it has to be really fresh. It tastes good. So then you go to a store or a restaurant and you order and you don't like it, don't do it.
Yeah, because it really should be made within minutes of being consumed. Yeah. All right, so accompaniment salads. I think we covered that one. Entree salads, of course, the king of them all, Cobb. The Cobb salad was actually invented at the Brown Derby restaurant in 1937. The Brown Derby restaurant was in LA. It was the hot spot to be in Hollywood back in the day. And it was one of the chefs there created the Cobb salad. And it's exactly what it was. This top one is the Cobb. And it has eggs and tomato and chicken and turkey, and it's the salad underneath it, and then those in really clean lines on the top. In some form of cheese, very, very light dressing. Cobb, if you want an entree salad with the most protein in it, that's it. And they're really easy to make. Very easy. A chicken salad, again, the chicken salad, I'm not talking with like mayonnaise and stuff in it. I'm talking a salad with greens underneath it, grilled chicken breast that you sliced or cubed and put on top of it, again with a vinaigrette of some sort. A Greek salad, feta, right? That's a really nice, it's semi-hard cheese because it's not quite as hard as a Parmesan or a Romano, but it doesn't have the fat that an American cheese does. And then throw some shrimp into that. Throw some calamari into that. Love salads. Some other things, I think this is where I was going to talk about the oil in the can, but eat your proteins first. Don't fill up on breadsticks. I mean, I've been in the restaurant business for 35 years. That's why they put them out. Because you fill up on the breadstick, which costs them zip. And then you go home with, or don't finish your full meal. Start with your protein. That also helps your body break that down faster so the micronutrients get absorbed into your body faster so that it has a bigger impact instead of being stuffed full of carbs. Again, I own a bakery, so trust me, I make some breadsticks, some really good breadsticks, but eat your protein first. Balance it with fiber. Who's ever had a really, really high protein diet for an extended period of time? It's not the most fun in like day 4. You need some fiber to help things move along. And you get what I'm saying. If you're having yogurt, make it Greek. Again, there's more protein in Greek yogurt than there is in regular yogurt. The other thing with yogurt I'll point out really quickly is check the sugar content. Because if it's got fruit at the bottom, that fruit is sugar, straight up. Not a bad thing, but if you're going for a high protein diet, you don't want that extra sugar. Get some really good granola, oats, just saying, with some Greek yogurt. Have that for a breakfast. Have that with your lunch or an afternoon snack. Because you're going to get more bang for your buck with the granola and the Greek yogurt than you will having the fruit at the bottom yogurt. Larger cuts of leaner meats. What do I mean by that? So let's say you've got your chicken breast, and your chicken breast, when you buy it at the store, it's like 8 ounces. That's a lot of chicken breast. I mean, that's a really big piece. But if you can go through at least half of that, you'll get more protein from 4 ounces of chicken than you would from 6 ounces of pork. So if you go with a little bit larger portion on something that has more protein, you're going to fill up faster so that you don't follow it up with all the junk. That's what I mean by, larger cuts of leaner meats. You'll be able to eat more of those because it's leaner and you don't have the fat. And then make a high protein dressing. Dressing is really not that difficult to make. I swear it's not. We make sandwiches at the bakery. It's a vegan sandwich. It's called the Veggie Delight. And for that, I throw some balsamic vinegar, some honey, some olive oil, some salt, some pepper in a bowl and a whisk. That's it. It doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. Now, there are some really good dressings out there. I would watch any dressing that says light or fat-free because they're going to add something to them to make it still creamy or tasty that you probably don't want. And I'm shamelessly going to plug a friend of mine. She owns, Karen owns the company Drench. It's a salad dressing that just got into Meijer's this year. And it's 5 or 6 ingredients or less, no preservatives, all organic, all clean. They're amazing. They're absolutely delicious dressings because she got tired of going to the store and looking at all the crap in them. Like there's a list of ingredients this long, and she was like, I can make better than this, and so she did. Nope. They're on the shelf. Drench. And they're so good. She's got a variety of flavors. My favorite is their Southwest. Drench. Drench. Just like you're drenched in the rain. Probably wouldn't like that I'm using that as an example, but that's the name of Drench. Yeah.
So, I hear what you're saying about balsamic oil and bread. How do you make that a high protein?
Add whey protein. Add a scoop. Add some whey. Because that's what it's designed to do. So you mix a little bit in there, and that, like I said, that gives it some creaminess. So it mimics that cream texture on your mouth. It will have a little bit of flavor. You can find some that are flavorless or inert in flavor, and then all you taste is the balsamic and the honey and the whatever else you're using in it. The other option would be to take oats and soak them, and then blend that in using a food processor. Again, it's going to change the texture, but you get the protein from the oats. Or if you really, really, really want a creamy dressing, use cottage cheese as your base. Farmer's cheese. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. But if you start with cottage cheese as your base, add your balsamic and your spices to that, put it through a food processor, there's your creamy dressing.
What about that I make, for example, my own cheese, and I strain the cheese out there?
That's farmer's cheese. Yeah.
So the water from that cheese is actually whey.
No, it's buttermilk.
But it's clear.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so I don't mean like you go to the store and you buy a jug of buttermilk. They actually make that. What you're talking about is the leftovers from that is buttermilk. There's whey in that, absolutely, but there's still a lot of moisture in it, and you'd have to really reduce it down to get the whey benefit from that. Powdered whey can be expensive, I'm not going to lie.
Actually, I learned to make this very cheaply. The cheese, I always buy the powdered cheese, it's very expensive, I mean, when I make home. So the way actually my dogs drink, they love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So it's all beneficial.
But there's a variety of ways to make the dressings more protein. Yes, ma'am. Hemp, I'm not as familiar with hemp, I'll be honest, but there absolutely is. I do know, yeah, they leave a strange texture though. Yeah, hemp seeds are, yeah, but if you hydrate those, they get kind of a jelly, kind of like, or maybe I'm thinking of flax, which also have really high protein. Chia seeds, that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah. All I can think of are those chia pets from when I was a kid. Right? Yeah. Yeah, and those are some other really great ways to add some protein pretty simply. Just sprinkle some of those on. Yep. All right, jerky. I love beef jerky. Love that stuff. Don't add it to your salad. The sodium. Smoking is fine, and that's not quite the same thing because this is smoking and dehydrating at the same time. But if you're going to smoke a pork tenderloin or smoke your chicken breast, go for it because you're still retaining the moisture in the meat itself. Excuse me, where jerky is completely pulling all of the moisture out and adding a lot of sodium. Also a lot of sugar. Canned fish sardines. I knew I was going to get to it somewhere. Watch what it's canned in. I don't mean the can itself, although it should be PBA free, of course, but I mean oil or water. And if it's oil, that's not bad. Make sure it's a good oil. Make sure it's something like olive oil or something that's not going to be like, you don't want a higher trans fat oil. You want something that's better for you. So olive, of course, is the better since it's a fruit oil. And people forget that olives are fruit. I'm sorry? Like tomatoes. Yeah. I mean, botanically, olives are fruit. And everyone thinks they're vegetables, but it grows on a tree, has a pit. It's a fruit. Cottage cheese, absolutely anytime. By itself, add some fruit. If you add fruit, don't add canned fruit, because typically the canned fruit is going to be canned in some kind of heavy syrup. And it'll say on the can, canned in heavy syrup. We're kind of proud of that. Go to the farmer's market and get a peach. You know, go through the produce section and grab some cherries, grab some blueberries, grab some strawberries. Add that to your cottage cheese. Because the processed stuff is not going to get the right, it always tastes mushy to me, has a really strange texture. Maybe that's why I can't do it. But fresh strawberries and cottage cheese with a little bit of fresh cracked black pepper. And you're like, strawberries and pepper? Trust me on that one. It's really good. And I don't like pepper. Pepper like makes my mouth burn. Spices are too much for me, but that's really good. All right. So some books for you to check out. The first two, the Flavor Bible and the Vegetarian Flavor Bible, are my absolute favorite books ever on the planet. They list every food you could possibly think of as a header, and then underneath it are all the other foods that pair well with it. So if you're looking to get creative or have some fun, this is a good place to start. And it gives you an opportunity to kind of play with your food without having to go buy it all. Because it tells you things that you would not necessarily connect together that really do taste good together. Karen Page went through and figured all that out. She surveyed chefs across the country. She did a lot of research on it. And I've been recommending this book for, 10 years now, Aaron? And it really is the most incredible cookbook I've ever had, and not a single recipe in it. Because I just love to play with flavors, and this gives you a really good chance to do that. Plant-powered protein. by Mary Margaret Chappell, and it's exactly what it says it is. It's an opportunity for you to read up on some plant proteins and how to add those in and how to cook with those, because they're a little bit different. I didn't really want to talk too much about some of the plant meats. Like they have come up with the Impossible Burger. Has anybody heard of that? That's all protein. It's really tasty. I've had it a couple of times. It's really good. It's really expensive. But it cooks differently, and that's my point with this, is plant proteins behave a little bit differently when you're cooking with them than animal proteins. So this is a good way to kind of dip your toe into that arena. And then the Perfect Protein Fish Lover's Guide, every kind of fish you can think of. How to process it, how to cut it, how to buy it, how to tell if it's fresh or not, some recipes for each of them. And it really is an in-depth guide into fish and seafood, and it's just a lot of fun. Because I read cookbooks for fun at home. My girlfriend's mad because I have like 200. So I'm like, honey, it's my job. But every time I come home with a new one, she's like, can't help it. I mean, of all the things to be addicted to, that's not a bad one. Cookbooks, right? Yeah. Anyway. All right, that's all I've got for you tonight. Thank you so much. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
How does tofu rank in terms of being high protein, low protein?
Tofu has a lot of protein. It is edamame. I will caveat that with it is also extremely processed. To go from the bean to tofu is a fairly lengthy process. It does require a bit to do. There's different textures of tofu. There's firm, silken firm, soft, and depending on what you're doing with it, will depend on which firmness you'd want to use. The nice thing about tofu is it's fairly neutral in terms of flavor. So whatever you put with it, it will absorb that flavor and heighten it some and add a little bit of an umami flavor to whatever you're using it for. But I have, my favorite way to make and use tofu is with chocolate pudding. Yeah. Okay, umami. So what does umami mean? We all know our 5 flavors. Sugar, sweet, salt, bitter, spice. I'm forgetting one. Sour, thank you, sour. Umami is considered the 6th, and it's an earthy flavor. So if you think mushrooms, if you think truffles, if you think some seafoods, soy sauce is considered the mother of all umami. The other one is, and don't throw stones at me, but MSG. And people think MSG is bad for you. It isn't. Studies after studies after studies have shown that MSG is actually, it's a protein. It's good for you. You have to have it. There was a very bad scientific study done in the 60s that said that it was bad for you, and that has been completely debunked over and over and over. I'm sorry? Seaweed. It's actually how it's derived. MSG is made from seaweed. A Japanese scientist in the, I want to say 30s, developed the process that he dehydrated the seaweed, powdered it, and came up with MSG. And all MSG stands for is monosodium glutamate. And glutamate is a protein. And your body needs that protein to process other proteins. So it's actually really good for you. Again, I'm not saying eat a spoonful of it every day, but I'm saying like you can sprinkle it on things and it will heighten the flavor of everything else that you put in your dish. It can, the studies haven't shown that it's addictive in terms of like a drug being addictive. It does, people enjoy that flavor, but it's not been proven to be addictive yet.
But it's really high in sodium.
It does have a higher sodium, yeah, because it's monosodium glutamate. Yep, it is. It's an appetite stimulator. It's one of the main ingredients in Doritos. Yeah. Yeah, and most people don't know that. But if you enjoy Doritos, it's probably because of the MSG. And most time, if you go to the store in the spice section, there's a bottle of Accent. That's MSG. You can go to there's a market on Packard. I can't remember the name of it. It's the Chinese market. Aaron, do you remember? Do you know what I'm talking about?
The Galleria one?
Yes. You can just buy a pound of MSG. You can just sprinkle it on things. Don't like. No, I mean it's not the iodine in it. It's a seaweed. It's made from seaweed, which is a completely natural product. It's seaweed. Any other questions?
So, you know, you mentioned edamame, and that's the beef, yeah? And so that I assume is one of the
Yeah, edamame is another word for soy. Soybeans. And when I was a kid, we had soybean burgers for school. I mean, that was what the cafeteria gave us. It's soy, straight up soy. Yep. Any other questions? Any food? We've kind of hit a bunch of things. Yeah. I'm sorry? Yes. I've had it. I love it. Beef tartare? Love it. It's probably the beef itself that's different because of how it's made and the beef, what the cattle are fed. I've had it completely raw. And then a little depression in the center with a raw egg in the middle. Yeah, absolutely. I've had it. There was a restaurant in Detroit that I've had it at. Hang on. Yeah, Aaron.
Yeah, just quick question. That drenched dressing, have you seen it locally? Because when you go on her website, it
I
doesn't.
saw it at the Meyer on Jackson Road.
Okay, so her shop thing on her website's not accurate then?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, I have
Good
seen
to
it
know.
there.
Okay.
Yep. I'm sorry, what was your question on tartare? So tartare simply means a protein, an animal protein, finely diced. I've seen tuna tartare, I've seen steak tartare. I haven't seen chicken, but it's typically going to be beef or seafood of some sort that's finely chopped. There's some oil added to it with some spices, and depending on how they're presenting it, it may or may not have the raw egg in the center. With typically toast points that you put the tartare on the point and eat it that way. It's really good. Yeah. Oh, poke. It's very similar to poke, yeah. Yep. Which is phenomenal. Love that stuff. Awesome. Thanks, everyone. I really. Oh, yeah. One more question. Sorry.
So if you come to your bakery on Saturday morning, what time do you have to be there?
We open at 9, we close at 4, and we usually sell out of the cinnamon rolls and sticky buns by noon. The Lakehouse Bakery. It's on the corner of Waterloo and Sugarloaf Lake Road in Chelsea. It's not downtown Chelsea, so it's a little bit further out. So if you take 52 north through Chelsea to Waterloo Road, hang a left, and I'm 4 miles down.